We have to be online too. We're not there yet. Well, we can do that. Have you start and then make sure. Yeah. I do have the box. I'm sorry? We're ready for. Okay. Good afternoon. This Township of Selwyn Committee of Adjustment meeting of October the 22nd, 2024 will come to order. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will go to our planner to announce the purpose for this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Committee of Adjustment is holding a public hearing today in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act in order to consider 3 applications for relief for bylaw 2009-0221, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn. The prescribed notice of public hearing was provided via prepaid first-class mail to all residents within a 60-meter radius of the property subject to the applications, as well as by sign posted on the subject lands. The notices are also available on the Township's website. The notice circulation complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn, but does not make oral submissions at a public hearing, make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment before the committee gives or refuses to give the approval to the application, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn in respect of the proposed variances, before the committee gives or refuses to give approval to the application, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, providing your name and address or email address. So the first application today is for 729 Fairview Lane. The purpose of the proposed development is to permit the construction of a roughly 40 square meter or 430.6 square foot dwelling addition. The relief being requested is to reduce the front yard setback from 15 meters to 12.19 meters to the dwelling addition. We have comments of no concern from the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority, Bell, the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, and County Public Works. I find that the application meets the 4 tests of the minor variances, and I do recommend the application for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone here to speak in favor or against this application? And we had no one that was registered, Madam Deputy Clerk.
No one's registered here.
Very much. Seeing that there is no one, I will bring it to committee. Is there any comment or questions? I have one thing on the report. The condition says that the application did the applicants obtain the necessary building? I think it.
Oh,
should-
permit, yeah, it
permit
should
there.
be permit.
Yeah,
So that was that also on the approval form on the decision? It is in my report, I realize.
okay.
Maybe we could just,
As long as we
maybe we could
caught
just
it, I
pencil
don't
that
care.
in, Angela. Thank you. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
I might have done that to all of them.
No, you didn't.
Oh,
You
okay.
didn't. Yeah, anyways, because I checked.
All right.
All right, we'll move on to the,
right,
there's
yeah.
no questions, so we'll move on to the next application, A2424, please.
So 824-24 is for 507 Gifford Drive. The proposal in this case is to permit the construction of a 572 square foot, two-story garage. The reliefs being requested are to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 26 meters to a replacement garage, to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 3.5 meters to the garage, to reduce the minimum setback from the center line of a township road from 17.5 meters to 13.5 meters, to increase the maximum permitted height for a detached garage from 6 meters to 6.9 meters, and to reduce the minimum street line front yard setback for a parking area from 2 meters to 0 meters. Again, we have comments of no concern from the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority, Bell, County Public Works, the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval.
Thank you very much. And I understand that the agent, Lori Young, is here. Do you have anything you wish to add to that report? No. All right. Is there anyone else here that is in favor or against this application? And no one has registered?
There's no one here virtually for this application.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to committee. Are there any questions on this application? Member Black.
Thank you, through your chair. Just for clarification, the entrance into this new garage, it doesn't face the road. It comes in on the angle.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
So it's not that short distance to the edge of the road is not going to be an issue.
No, that's correct. It is from the side, so the existing entrances will be used in order to gain access to the garage.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for this application? Seeing none, we'll move on to A 2524, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one is for 641 Turtle Bay Boulevard. In this particular case, the project is to construct a brand new 2,096 square foot, two-story single detached dwelling. It's approximately 195 square meters. The relief being requested is to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to plus or minus 18.43 meters to a new dwelling. The existing residence is much closer, actually, at about 11 meters to the shoreline, so that it is being increased through this redevelopment. Again, we have comments of no concern from Bell, the County Public Works, and the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board. In this case, ORCA is requiring permits, so there's a condition for ORCA permits in this case. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here in favor or against this application? Seeing none and no one registered virtually.
We have no one registered online for this.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve all 3 applications. Moved by member Henry, seconded by member Black. All in favor, that is carried. Thank you very much. We have minutes of September the 24th, 2024. Everyone's had a chance to read them. It's moved by member Koulis and seconded by member Boyko. All in favor, that's carried. Thank you. Our next meeting is November the 25th, and I need a motion to adjourn, please. Member Henry and member Koulis, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Our council meeting will start in 7 minutes. Yeah, but have one box. Yes. So when I. Yeah, yeah, it's been just changed quite a bit. We're ready? Good afternoon, everyone. This council meeting for the Township of Selwyn for Tuesday, October the 22nd, 2024. I'm having trouble with my dates today, so bear with me. I will come to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. We'd like to observe a moment of silence so that council, staff, and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will go to the minutes of October the 8th, 2024. Everyone had a chance to read them. Are there any errors or omissions? If not, I'd like it moved by Councillor Boyko, seconded by Councillor Henry, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. And is there any discussion out of the minutes? Seeing none, we will go to our first delegation, and from Monteith Brown, we are going to be talking about our strategic plan and recreation services plan update. Welcome back to Selwyn.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and hello, members of council. On and aside, Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, and it's a pleasure to be back in your beautiful community at this beautiful time of year. We're going to run you through the progress to date on the recreation services plan. Township staff will also be presenting subsequently about the strategic plan. So, no, that's okay. Thank you very much, 10. Oh, got excited. One click. There we go. So the recreation services plan, I know council has been engaged in this process since its inception. So thank you very much again for feedback today. As a reminder, though, the recreation services plan really is the blueprint for how the township makes decisions in terms of how it invests into parks, recreation, trail services over a 10-year period. In this case, the year 2035. We are updating more comprehensively the recreation services plan prepared in 2012. You will recall there was a scoped update to that plan in 2018, but where we are today is a more of a comprehensive update. Council has also been guided by a strategic plan that articulates vision, purpose, values to enable more corporate-wide decision-making. With this new term of council, a newer term of council, the strategic plan is also being updated. And we started the process back in the spring. We had a community open house here in council chambers. There was a community feedback forum as well as workshops and interviews with various user groups, agency partners operating within your community. We presented an overview of what we heard back in the midsummer timeframe, virtually at that time to council, and based again on some of the feedback that was received then in tandem with what we heard from the community in the initial phases. We spent the summer preparing the plans. Again, Monty Brown really focused on the recreation, parks and trails component, working with your staff on the strategic plan elements. So today, again, as I mentioned, we have a draft recreation services plan as well as a draft strategic plan framework that is going to be presented to council for your feedback, with the intent of going out to the community to essentially test these draft plans before we come back to you with a final product in about a month's time. The demographic basis in which we're working with, again, as we've explained at past sessions, and no secret to yourselves, Selwyn is a very different community today than it was in 2012 even. The population, the demographics are different. You have new developments happening in certain areas of your community. And so whether it's not only the number of people that live in your community, really who they are, their age ranges, the incomes, the cultural backgrounds, various different factors influence how people, use municipal services, how they use parks, recreation, trail facilities. In terms of the themes, again, this is more of a recap from what we presented back to you in the summer, but strong community pride, volunteerism, where was again, your backbone. The volunteers are the backbones in many respects of many of the services that you offer. But the challenges not just unique to Selwyn, but countrywide. We heard about the importance of, as Selwyn grows, transportation, economic development, cultural vibrancy. We heard about all these things that people value and want to see continue and grow in Selwyn. Appreciation for outdoors, natural surroundings, accessibility, inclusion, and more from a recreational standpoint. We've heard throughout the process requests for ice time, additional parks, additional trails, playgrounds. So the next portion of the presentation really is focused on the plans themselves. As I mentioned, township staff in a moment will be have prepared a report that was included as part of this agenda regarding the strategic plan, but really from a general consensus from consultations that we undertook over the spring and summer. Most folks seem to be generally content with the vision, the purpose, the values articulated, and that have been in place in past strategic plans. Again, the strategic plan, you as a council, as a township, as staff have done a great job of implementing findings from the last plan. Again, in response to community needs, changing demographics. We've seen the trail network expand across your township, improvements to a number of facilities, conversions of others. Again, to just recognizing evolving needs, invested in ball diamonds, a ball diamond canoe launches and skate park in Lakefield, disc golf and an outdoor fitness trail in Ennismore. This is just a snapshot. Obviously, you've done a lot more. Pickleball, tennis, basketball courts at the Robert E. Young, as well as Douglas Sports Center. And then again, since 2012, Woodland Acres, a beautiful, beautiful park. From the recreation services plan, some of the highlights of, again, not all, I think there's just under 30 recommendations. So we're presenting you a snapshot of some of the more what we feel are notable, but certainly happy to speak to anything else in the report that you may have read. But from a preliminary standpoint, we believe that there is a rationale that exists to construct a splash pad and basketball court in Bridge North. Lighting the South Diamond at the Robert E. Young complex in Ennismore. We heard from ball diamond users about especially growing needs for adult play. And so lighting is a really effective way to add capacity without finding new land or building new facilities. Generally, if you can play a little bit later into the evening, you don't have to build another ball diamond, to offset some of those demands. looking at potentially a new rectangular field in Lakefield South. Keyword there, potentially, township staff would work to determine the appropriate location. But Lakefield South is your primary development area where the majority of growth is going to happen in the short to medium term over our planning period. So you can expect to acquire parkland there. So in our minds, at least our minds, is that presents an opportunity again if you have parkland coming in, instead of trying to find an existing park to fit a field. But that could be an option that township staff ultimately come back with. Acquiring parkland again in Lakefield South and any future residential areas that are coming on stream over the next 10 years. We want to ensure a good distribution of parkland. There is a community-led initiative right now supporting a barrier-free playground in Ennismore. We've heard from those folks through the consultations. We've been part of accessibility advisory committee meetings where that group is also presented, and we've been able to benefit that. We see a case to support that initiative. Adding a playground in Lakefield South, again, more from a distributional perspective. Also in Lakefield, there was a master plan and landscape concept plan prepared a number of years back for Isabel Morris Park. Township has implemented some of those components. There are others that we believe could continue to be implemented over the next 10 years. A lot of lakes in your community, a lot of waterfront, and continuing to enhance what you've, the good work that you've done there for water-based activities, whether it's swimming or paddle sports, recreational boating. So looking at a water access point in North Smith and exploring perhaps things like Moby mats at your municipal beaches to improve accessibility there. From a trails perspective, I mean, a broad-based recommendation, really, not only do we encourage you to continue to strive to enhance connectivity within the individual settlement areas, but also between them so that we have a township-wide system. The map on that screen really is a high-level description of where we see some of the major kind of directional travel, I suppose, of the trail system. The draft RSP does have some specific linkages identified. Again, so happy to take some questions there if there are. Trail planning, effective trail planning doesn't always only fall on the municipality. There are a number of partners. And so, identifying who those partners are, working with those groups. Again, they may be public agencies, they may be private landholders. But again, from an integrated planning standpoint, that communication is important. And then continuing to, monitor how the level of service provided in terms of trail maintenance, so that this council and staff can make decisions. Do we need to adjust those levels of service year round? What are the implications of that in terms of staffing, maintenance costs, financial impacts, and such? Other findings, again, to kind of bring us through the home stretch. We heard from arena users that it is very difficult to find additional ice time in your community. We've looked at the schedules, utilization data. We agree with them. What we are suggesting though is over the next 10 years with growth of about, 1,300 people projected, you're really at a tipping point. Arenas are multi-million-dollar facilities. And so before making a decision to add ice, really let's set the baseline in terms of monitoring ice sport participation rates. We've made a recommendation for an ice allocation policy, which can help improve the efficiency in terms of how certain groups obtain ice based on their, the number of participants, things like gender equity. That could result in some operational efficiencies. So, have a look also in terms of what your neighbors are doing in terms of ice and how their arenas are being used. Generally speaking, arena sports have been in decline across Canada and Ontario for a number of years. We will acknowledge, though, that your community has been a little bit different in terms of its growth in minor sports. So again, we're sensitive to that, but we're also, presenting, I suppose, a somewhat conservative approach of let's, make sure before we invest in something that we have the support to make that decision. We mentioned Isabel Morris and the master plan work that was done. One of the outstanding components or unimplemented components, I should say, is revitalization of the pavilion in a way that would be conducive to special events and festivals. We think that could be an opportunity to again bolster that key destination in your township. And as well, adding a natural or adventure playground in that location. In Ennismore, there is a large parcel of land that you have as parkland called Cashel Park. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's currently undeveloped. We suggest, again, because it is a fairly large park, a strategic location, to develop a plan that dictates the appropriate uses and amenities for that location. So with that, we're here to listen to, any preliminary thoughts of council today before we launch into the public review and commenting period. That will start very shortly. The document will be posted online through Speak Up Selwyn. And we will be here again next week on the 28th, which I think is the Monday. From 5 to 7 here in council chambers with our second community open house. I believe township staff are already promoting that event and hope we have excellent turnout like we had at the first session. The intent will then be to take what we've heard from you today, the community over the next couple of weeks, come back to this council on November 26th with the final recreation services plan and the final strategic plan. So with that, thank you for indulging me. I would be pleased to take any questions at this time.
Okay, before I pass it to my colleagues, I have a question. There are do the people that are out there want to come in? No, they want to wait for the public. Okay, thank you. Do we take into account what's going on around us as well when we're making decisions? For example, you were talking about another arena, yet the city of Peterborough is putting in twin pads, which might affect our usage and a need for another arena. And the other thing that, so you do take that into consideration?
Absolutely.
Okay. The other thing that was missing out of here that I saw, the township doesn't own it, but Orca does. And that's Selwyn Conservation Area. And they have a beach, they have trails, amenities that our residents, from what I remember, at least when I was on the Orca board, it was free. I don't think it costs anything for our residents to use those amenities. And I think the Selwyn Beach is one of the best kept secrets that we have because it's beautiful and secluded, and yeah, it's really nice. I didn't see anything about that in here.
Yeah, I think, Madam Mayor, those are excellent points. So when it comes to certain types of facilities, especially those that are considered drive-to facilities like arenas, we do take into account, again, what's happening in other communities. And that's why we're suggesting, again, keeping apprised. And I know Mike Richardson does this already through his group, his network. They talk, they know what's happening at each other's facilities. We know that Peterborough has invested a significant amount of money in a new community center, which includes that twin pad arena. And if we look at that arena being probably 20 to 30 minutes from Lakefield or Bridgenorth, at least, that is within kind of a distance, a number of arena users, I would say, not all, but that is kind of getting in that distance. So, we think that regional supply is important. When it comes to partners, whether it's Orca, whether it's the school boards, there are a lot of assets. And then, as I said with earlier, it's not just the township's responsibility. Sorry, it's very difficult for the township to be everything to everybody. And that's why those partnerships with agencies, with, again, private landowners are critical. So we would continue, just as you've done, in Lakefield with campground, you've implemented a partnership with the Conservation Authority. They have lands, you can help promote them, perhaps. You can work with conservation authorities where they may be already delivering certain types of programs to your community. So absolutely, obviously you don't manage or control their decisions, but you are a partner with them and continue to, engage in that way.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll open it up to Council Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through Mayor Sennis. Thanks for the presentation. That was fantastic. Just a couple of questions. One with respect to the arena, the city lost the Northcrest Arena as well. So it's really adding one pad. And I know from my experience coaching both girls and boys hockey, where we had to go to Havelock to get ice time still. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on the ice time usage up here, but it's a good point. And all those things have to be taken into consideration. I was pleased to see in the report, and I read all of it with respect to connectivity and walkable surfaces. You did include rural lines, the 7th line, and a number of other areas within the township. Considering adding widening the surface to include, I think it was 1.5 meter walking surface on some of those rural lines, and it creates the connectivity into the villages in Dennismore, into Youngs Point, places like that. I think that's a great idea looking forward. The use of those roads has changed over the years as people are more into outdoor and trails. And, identifying that trails use, both paved and unpaved, were within the top 5, number 1 and number 5. I think that's a great move forward in the plan. My question around, we have a lot of multi-purpose trails around different parts of the township. What's your experience with respect to other municipalities as far as maintaining those on a year-round basis? Given that it seems to be the priority in our municipalities to have them available. What's your experience with respect to how municipalities are dealing with that, issue around liability and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's through you, Madam Mayor. That's a great question about the multi-purpose nature, because multi-purpose is one thing, multi-seasons is another, and so obviously we travel year round, but our experience in other municipalities, and I'm sure here as well, it's a matter of resourcing. Do we have the resources, both human and financial? Are there environmental considerations as well? Typically, when you have a paved multi-use trail, you wouldn't direct them through a very environmentally sensitive area, but is there use of salt and things like that? Ultimately, though, I think where we see those multi-seasonal maintenance activities taking place is identification of which of these trails are our true spines. The major routes that are facilitating the majority of movement throughout the year, and kind of starting there. And, again, considering some of those other factors for more secondary trails or ancillary trails, though those are factored in later, not to be lost sight of as well is your sidewalk system, which does already receive, seasonal maintenance. So that is part of the active transportation system as well. So it is really, the reason why the recommendation has been made to document a little bit more in detail what your level of service is and what the implications of changing that level of service would be. That will then provide council with some, information to make that decision about, which, if any, trails should be maintained year round.
Thanks. That's a follow-up question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the other question I have, thank you for that. I'm not sure if it was in the strategic plan or this plan, talked about Isabel Morse Park and the pavilion being upgraded. And I think there was some comments in there with regards to a multi-purpose performance area, a band shell type of thing. And, we're moving into a new era of economic development within the county. We've got our own economic development department now, and we have our own local economic development person. When the focus is obviously agricultural, economic development and tourism. So what impact do you think having a small band shell at a place like Isabel Morse Park, I think is where it's referenced. What kind of an impact do you think that would have to tourism and bringing dollars into Selwyn Township?
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a precise dollar figure, for example, but there are certainly quantifiable financial, benefits and costs, but there are also intrinsic kind of benefits as well. So as we look to Lakefield and we look to, many urban rural municipalities looking to attract new populations, attract professionals. What brings people into a community? Services largely. Do we have facilities? Do we have spaces? Do we have vibrant spaces? And so, a pavilion that is more multi-purpose in nature that can, provide a different level of experience to your arts and cultural sector. From an arts and cultural perspective, a community vibrancy perspective, that is a positive, I would think. Certainly there will be a capital cost that one would have to weigh. But I think as part of any kind of business case and with any of these recommendations in this RSP, just as in the past, township staff will come back to council with perhaps a more comprehensive analysis saying, okay, these are the impacts of what this RSP recommendation is. This is what council you must consider. And perhaps part of that might be an economic impact analysis. Again, we see this largely more from a community level space, like event space, but that's not to say that it could grow to something a bit more regional. For example, if there's modest design tweaks, perhaps. So I think those are the things that one needs to consider. It really is about reinforcing each of your settlement areas. Whether it's Robert E. Young, whether it's a place in Bridge North, Isabel Morris in Lakefield, reinforcing these key destinations and, striving to improve vibrancy in your community as a whole.
Thank you. Councillor Boyko.
Thank you, Mayor Sens. Through you, thank you for the presentation. You gave us a lot to read, but I enjoyed the reading. And my question first, I'd like to say that I'm really happy to hear a conversation that is taking place about the possibility of maintaining more of our paved trails throughout the year, because I read that 57, it was in the strategic plan, 51% of people say that the activity that they enjoy more than anything is walking on the paved trails. And so therefore, I think we owe it to them to think about allowing them to do so all year long. I'm also happy to hear about the possibility of a multi-purpose performance square. A lot to research in that, but let's do that research. So the question that I have is with respect to the connectivity of trails throughout the township. You said if you would like to ask me about that, I'd be glad to tell you. Please, I'm asking about that. Tell me about more of the ideas, the potential that you see for the connectivity of the trails throughout the township.
Yeah, trail connectivity is important in so many ways, I believe. Not only does it provide another form of transportation, from a commute standpoint even, it's also utilitarian if you need to go to the grocery store. We recognize that there are environmental benefits. If one person a week decides to replace a car trip with use of your trail, that's one less car on the road every single week added up. So emissions, physical activity, health benefits, trails, obviously, if we can create linkages from an environmental stewardship, green linkages. So, the challenge, I think, though, obviously you recognize in this township is just the sheer geographic scale of what you have to cover, and the fact that there are so many different landowners, and your lakes and all those beautiful natural features can also sometimes be natural barriers where you can't put something straight all the way through. But it doesn't diminish the importance of a strong trail system. I guess one thing that we'll want to be mindful of, and I will again, because I don't even know if the legislation's passed yet, but provincially, when we're talking about the province perhaps informing your decisions around whether bike lanes, for example, can take place on some of these roads. That will be something to think about moving forward. But from an overall connectivity standpoint, again, it's egalitarian, it's utilitarian, it's functional. And so we believe strongly in investments in trails. And again, to your credit, as well as the credit of a lot of dedicated volunteers in your community, private owners as well, you've been able to work with a lot of different people to, again, build what I think is a very strong network of trails, given your geographic size.
Yeah, true. If I could, thank you. The one piece perhaps missing from your analysis that you just didn't mention, but I know that you're aware of is the groups that are within our township and broader. The Toronto Algonquin Greenway group that is talking about putting a trail from Toronto to Algonquin Park that would go through Selwyn. That's a group that I was on the phone with just a couple of days ago. The Nature Conservancy and others. I just use those two as examples. There's other partners in making this happen.
Yeah, well, and to Councillor Black's point as well, I mean, the trail system, we've talked about even in our report, not only connectivity within and, you know, between settlement areas, we've also talked about regional potential linkages as well. And so from an economic development standpoint, if there are people that do come, the trails can be a big part of your economic development and tourism infrastructure as well.
Right. And one final point. And the other thing that you mentioned that I think is essential and needs to have a central point in our strategic plan and the other is the volunteerism. The trail system, for example, is so dependent on volunteers. So many of our festivals, so many of the other things are dependent on volunteers. Amy Stevenson from our staff participated in a volunteer forum the other day and 5 people showed up. And so that is something that must be intentional, where in the past we thought the volunteers will come, we'll build it and they will come. Well, it isn't going to happen anymore. So it's something we must be much more intentional about attracting and retaining volunteers. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other questions. So we're being asked at this point to receive this draft recreation plan, and there will be a public meeting on Monday.
Correct.
And then it will end up coming back to council again, correct?
That is correct. So our intent is after the public open house and the online feedback period, and I guess it's hard copy as well.
Right.
Anybody that wishes to provide comment over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will read everything that comes to us. We will listen to feedback on Monday. And then we will assess that feedback to determine whether or not this document needs to be correct. Essentially, what we want to know from council and the community over the next few weeks is, you know, what elements of the plan do people agree with? Are there areas perhaps where, you know, they would have liked to see something that wasn't included? And so we can make, you know, think about that and determine whether or not this draft needs to be adjusted anyway. That way, when we come back to you on November 26th, we can let you know what, if anything, has changed based on the feedback received. And so that the public still knows that there is time to influence this document before we come to you with that final document.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm looking for someone to receive this part of the presentation and this recreation services draft plan. Councillor Koulis and Councillor Boyko, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Now, are you going to talk to us about the strat plan, or I'm turning it over to Janice? Because it says on this thing, oh, no, it says strat plan, rec plan. That's why I was a little confused.
Yeah, so that will be me when we get there. It is 1:30 though, so I'm wondering if you might want to proceed with your public meeting so these
Yes.
folks can
Sure.
have that concluded.
Okay, can we bring the people in? So we are having a public meeting for zoning bylaw amendment. I'm going to turn it over to our planner to announce the purpose of the meeting. Okay.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, your worship. The Council of Township of Selwyn is holding a public meeting in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act. As amended in order to consider two applications today for zoning bylaw amendment. The prescribed notices of public meeting were provided via via prepaid first-class mail to all residents within a 120-meter radius of the subject properties, as well as by a sign posted on the subject lands. The notices are also available on the county and, just on the township website. The notice of circulation complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Township of Selwyn, but does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Selwyn in respect of the zoning bylaw amendment, before the approval authority gives or refuses to give approval to the zoning bylaw amendment, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Township of Selwyn in respect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment before the approval authority gives or refuses to give the approval to the zoning amendment, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless in the opinion of tribunal there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Council of the Township of Selwyn in respect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make written request of the Township of Selwyn, providing your name and address or email address. So the first application today is for C06-24. This is for 1636 line. Specifically, the use being proposed here is a custom car workshop. My understanding is that it's about 1 to 2 cars being completed every 6 to 8 weeks or so within an existing garage at the residence. The garage at the residence is about 53 square meters or 570 square feet. With regard to this one, we have comments of no concern from the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority, as well as from Enbridge, the County of Peterborough Public Works Department, Curve Lake First Nation, I think Bell, and I think I mentioned Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board. I find that the application is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms with the county and township official plans. I do recommend the zoning amendment for approval. Just to take note a little bit here on a little bit of a sidebar. The amendment specifically is allowing for the custom car shop where that is not permitted as a home industry under general rural residential zoning, although home industry is, but other types of home industry. I've assessed this against the province's D-series guidelines regarding light industrial uses. This falls beneath that bar. Light industrial uses are purpose-built assembly manufacturing, small scale buildings. But as a parameter to measure this particular proposal from, they recommend a minimum 20-meter separation distance between that type of a use and another residence. This proposal maintains that minimum recommended separation distance from the garage to the next residence to the east. In terms of residential uses in the area, this is the only other property that is rural residential, the one that the abutting property to the east. All the other properties that were surrounding the area are rural properties, farm properties, so much larger properties. Yeah, I think that's what I sort of wanted just to highlight, that it is out of an existing garage. It's a limited use. It's going to continue as a home industry, not as a dedicated industrial site. It's the owner of the property will be operating this as his personal business. And that pretty much clarifies, I think, what the intended use is. And if there's any further questions on that, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right, thank you very much. So I will now turn to the public. Is there anyone here that is speaking in favor of this application? If you would go to the mic and give your name and address. Has anyone registered to speak in favor of this application?
We have no one registered to speak in favor or in opposition of this application, Madam Chair, but planner Kevin Duguay is on the line.
The planner, Kevin Duguay. Good afternoon, Kevin. Is there anything that you wish to add to this application and report that has been given by the planner?
Mayor Senes, I can say that firstly, I've considered the entire report. I have no further commentary. I would like to thank Mr. Lundberg for his presentation and the timely and efficient administration of the application. I make myself available in the event there are questions of council at this time. And if I might, I wanted to congratulate your municipality on your strat plan vis-a-vis trails. As a Rotarian, my Rotary Club in Peterborough was very involved in trails. In fact, those that were extended to your community. So congratulations, and any further trail enhancements would be welcome. Thank you. So I make myself available now to speak to the subject application if needed. Thank you.
All right, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Just interrupting, I'll just add one more comment.
Yes,
On your worship. So being in the home industry, this application is subject to site plan control. And there is a holding zone provision being placed on the zoning amendment. The key components of that will be addressed at site plan control is a planting strip between this lot and the residential lot to the east. As well as ensuring that there's sufficient parking spaces, which will be 3 parking spaces required for the home business.
okay, thank you very much. So there's no one else to speak in favor of the application. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing none, I will bring it to council. Are there any questions? Councillor Boyko?
My only question through you, Mayor Senes, and I don't know whether I'm asking Kevin or Per, but with this type of business, is there concern about noise? Excessive noise coming from the repair of cars? Or is the property located at such a place that there's no one around that would be affected by the sounds coming from the repair shop?
So through you, your worship, that was sort of the intent of my commentary regarding the province's land use compatibility guidelines, specifically for noise and vibration, and maintaining that 20-meter separation distance. Also, we're putting in the mitigation measure of a planting strip along the front part of the property, as well as the side yard property line where the garage is and the adjacent neighbors. So both the separation distance and the planting strip will serve to buffer any potential noise to the province's standards.
Okay, thank you.
And if I might, Mayor Sanis, to Councillor Boyko, I concur with those remarks. This is a very limited operation, 1 car at a time, custom cars. I am familiar with similar operations in Peterborough. It's enclosed, it's quiet, and they're always considerate of not only their own property, which they reside in, but any adjacent residential property. So noise, as we know, will not be a concern.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. And no questions from this side. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through Mayor Senes. So Per, there would be site plan required for the site. You did mention parking, and of course, that would be a concern if they're working on multiple vehicles at any given time. I know your conceptual site plan shows 3 parking spots, additional parking spots to the driveway, but will the site plan have a maximum number of vehicles that can be on the property? That we don't have cars parked on the lawn or in back or off the driveway, off the existing driveway?
So through your Madam Chair, or your worship, there wouldn't be a maximum control per se. There's a minimum parking standards for provide minimum number of parking spaces. However, obviously your lawn is not an appropriate place to put cars. And there's no provision being made through the zoning amendment for outside display or storage. So it would become a property standards issue that our bylaw would have to respond to clean up the property if there was excess amount of just parts or cars littering the property, right? This was discussed at our pre-consultation meeting, so that the property owners are well aware that that's not an appropriate use of the property to park a lot of things associated with this business on the lawn, right?
Yeah, I think that's from a neighbor's perspective would be the biggest concern, that it doesn't turn into a scrapyard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, we have a recommendation before us. And I'm looking for someone to make the motion. Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Boyko, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the second application. There.
The second application today is for Elkins by Pinehurst Avenue. The proposal here is, I want to be clear on this, we're not adding a use to the property. We're modifying the permitted use of the second unit on any relational residential zone. Specifically to allow the second unit of an detached dwelling. The subject property went through what's called a flood addition consent. So we have both the waterfront portion on the west side of Pinehurst Avenue and then a parcel on the east side. That we want to legally go on to the main part of the waterfront property. They're not separate parcels, they're joined together. So this detached garage is an accessory garage to the principal dwelling on the waterfront side. And only if needed or the second unit of it. Normally within the residential zoning regulations, only the second unit is only permitted within the principal dwelling, so within the basement or in an attic, or potentially within an addition ladder. So the modification we're making through this zoning amendment is to allow the second unit to attach to it as opposed to within the principal. And again, we're making some modifications to the local amendment as well to allow the side grid to be 120.7 square meters or 1,385 square feet. And also a separation distance adjustment. Normally we put that at a maximum of 30 meters. We're extending that to 45 meters. But again, I find that this the application is consistent with the initial plans. I get this straight now. It just changed Sunday. It's the provincial planning statement. Conform with the county official plan and it conforms with the township official plan. With regard to site servicing for the property, obviously council is aware of our 30-year setback requirement. And I find that this makes for good planning with regard to the 70 years that we're looking further away from the water line. And that would be potential. I think that's it for the further offer here. In this particular case, we have comments of no concern from the Italian Conservation Authority. See what's something here. Enbridge provided comments of no concern. County Republic Works provided comments of no concern as well. We do have a number of residents that have written in the last few days in opposition to the application. They concerned over the site of the operation that impaired the facility. Specifically, yesterday we got a letter signed, co-signed by 17 residents. Again, council was forward with that, so you hopefully had an opportunity to read through that. Including that one, but I'll summarize the letters that we received today. Three of the letters are from residents of the lot next door. I think it's 61 Pinehurst. They also signed the letter from yesterday. Let's see here. So Scott Healy is opposed. He's opposed to the commercial enterprise use of the property, the short-term rental property. There's beyond capacity for well usage, water usage, septic system usage, excessive traffic, excessive noise related to the hot tub to the property line and that part. But those are primarily Scott's comments. Again, Justin Henderson also I think on factors highlighted similar issues with short-term rental use of the property. Concern for the property being used for event park purposes such as wedding reception, anniversary, or large gatherings. Concern for septic capacity, water use, and impacts on neighbors. And again, opposed to the zoning amendment.
And basically the garage, which parking to be sufficient use, traditional use on the property. And then also from 1961, Pinehurst Avenue, on Henderson, is opposed to the zoning amendment. Again, for additional thing that for property use. And then also with the garage, the parking would be sufficient for the use of the additional items to the area of the lot. We do have one letter, like I said, that's in favor of the application from Margaret McGee, Timothy Nage, Pinehurst Avenue.
Excuse me,
Based on my observations, experience, and opinion over the last 24 months, there's 8 points here within subject property is well maintained, appeared for, subject property is not overcrowded, subject property is not used for parking by the owner, there be details, such as noise is not allocated from the property. There can be just generally say the subject property and not less than 1 intervals. There can be just thing of the subject property or spectrum and on screen to there was a kind of the owners, on there, even details on the owners are not parking overnight on Pinehurst Avenue. Email article stated the subject property quite often, that's the that there needs to just stay the subject property at 1/4 of the time. The owners were Thompson, respectively, the neighbors. Goes on to say that the subject property should not be reviewed in 1971 Pinehurst Avenue, which Mr. Allen, Brad Allen finds is a problem. It is overcrowded, has many parties, excessive noise. Guest stay 2 to 3 night intervals. And not all guests stay there, 1971 are respectful, have volunteer our team parties at night on road allowance. And the owner of 1971 property not stay with 1971 property at all. Made plenty of 24 during those time when 1971 property. All right, I must have maybe I had this connected, so if I got the names wrong, that was from Brad Hall, that letter. The 1959 Pinehurst Avenue from Margaret McGee to the nation and again from the intent of the CMOS to state our opposition to the rezoning application requested for 1965 Pinehurst Avenue. The property questions about the big primarily by capacity short-term rental business. Increased noise, traffic, and disruption. Changing the zoning and allow such an expansion of this new dwelling area on a lot. Presently zoned as rural, created awesome for that base or residential. This contrary to existing planning for the area and expected to be affecting from the other product. You have one here.
So, sorry, Madam Chair.
yes.
Just a reminder to staff and council to turn on your mics, please, when you're talking. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I had turned it on. And this last one is from the residents at 1943 Pinehurst Avenue. This is from Chris and Colleen Snyder and Mary Ann and Kevin Whitmore. It's quite long, so I'll just summarize some of the points by paragraph. Again, concerned over the commercialized short-term rental use. Short-term rental use of plate communities across the country. Community disruption is a primary concern. Noise disturbance is a concern. Negative impact on the quality of life of Township Selwyn residents is a concern. Traffic and parking issues are common complaints to short-term rentals. Children's safety regarding traffic around this particular type of use. Animal control was cited as a concern with Airbnb users bringing in pets that wander around. And finally, we ask that Sullivan honors its responsibility as laid out in the Municipal Act 2001 and support its residents' quality of life and security over the individualistic economic opportunity. I will provide one more comment in regard to Airbnb or short-term rental. Council, I'm sure, is aware. We currently don't recognize, or we don't currently regulate that particular type of use in Selwyn, provided a residence such as the particular site here is rented out for the purpose of which it is owned. There's nothing contrary to that in our regulations. It is a permitted use. You can rent out your house. Anybody can rent out their house at any time. There's no stipulation on the amount of time that rental can occur for. It can be short, it can be long. The Planning Act does pass some provisions on leases and the length of those not exceeding 21 years. But otherwise, there's no restrictions on that. The restriction would obviously be if they rented out rooms within that residence. So now it's no longer being rented out as a residence. It's being rented out as potentially like a hotel use or a bed and breakfast type use, where guests stay in a room and you're renting out specifically one room. As long as the owner here is renting out the entire residence to a party and they bring family members to it, and it's being used as a single family dwelling, single detached dwelling, that's perfectly okay in regard to our current zoning regulations.
Okay. Is that the end of your comment?
Those are my comments.
All right,
I'll be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, when, before I continue with the process, I have a question for building and planning. Have we had any complaints on this particular address for Airbnb complaints?
Through Mayor Sennis, we received the first one that I'm aware of this past Sunday.
Okay, but prior to that, nothing.
I was unable to find any records for this address previously.
Okay, so we do have a process in place if there are complaints about noise and all the things that we've been hearing about in the letters we've received. And I encourage our residents to follow that process. The things that we've heard would not be impeding on changing this bylaw. So I'm going to continue on with the meeting now. And the only reason I said that was because I know there are a bunch of you here, and it will possibly reduce the number of people who are going to be speaking and the reasons why. I will now turn to the public to see if there's anyone that is in favor of this application. Can you please go to, no, just a second, there's somebody that's behind you. She's going to speak first. I believe she's the planner.
I am, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Laura Stone, a planner with One Community Planning, and I'm the agent for the property owner at 1965 Pinehurst. First of all, I would like to thank staff for the report presented today. As mentioned, this application seeks to permit a secondary dwelling unit on the parcel of property with the official plan designation of rural. The property has a split designation of rural on the rear portion of the lot and Lakeshore Residential on the waterfront portion. A secondary dwelling unit is permitted in the rural, is a permitted use in the rural designation of the official plan. The proposal for the secondary dwelling unit located above the garage is in conformity with the provincial planning statement and the county's official plan, as well as the policies lined out in the Township of Selwyn's bylaw for the most part. The application is before council today because while the property has a split official plan designation, the zoning is for the entire lot and it's zoned Lakeshore Residential with a stretch of EP right along the water frontage. And a secondary dwelling unit requires a modification to be permitted in a detached structure. Therefore, we're requesting an amendment for permission of this use. I'd like to just outline as well that an archaeological study, stage 1 and 2, was undertaken and accepted by the township. It also has been submitted to the province. Again, I will just reiterate, this use is permitted on this property. The request, however, is just to have the use in a detached structure, an accessory structure instead of in the primary or principal dwelling. This application represents good planning and is in conformity with the provincial and county policies. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have today.
All right, thank you. We will, if questions arise, we will get you to speak. But I want you to be cognizant that there are people who live on that street that are concerned, and it seems warranted that they feel there's noise, even though they haven't complained yet. And they don't want to add to it.
Thank you very much. And I have been speaking with my client about this. I asked if there had been any previous complaints made to her. She said a number of years ago, a complaint was made to the OPP about the hot tub use on a Saturday afternoon. When the officers showed up, I guess it was just conversational level speaking in the hot tub, and no fines were issued, no warnings were issued. So that's the only time that my client has had any interaction with complaints or troubles from the neighbors.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we may come back to you again when council members speak.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go, if you can, please give your name and address.
My name's Doug Roseborough, 2063 Pinehurst Ave. And I have no complaint about putting a residence above a garage, but I do think that in an Airbnb, it should be a limit to a number of guests. How many guests you can have should be limited to like 4. Instead of the 6 cars are there, that's 12 people. 12 people every day partying. I had my fun as a kid. That's getting kind of crazy every day, right? Mitch and Brooke are young. They party next door, splitting firewood at 2:30 in the morning. That's not the best thing for me, but hey, I had fun too, so let it go. But they don't have a party for another month or 2. So it's no big deal. So the application of having a apartment or whatever above a garage, I'm aware of other garages like that in Selwyn. I don't think it's a problem, but from what everyone's saying on the street, there's just too many people there. There's 12 on one side, there's 12 on the other. And that's my concern. The other concern is, can the septic handle the amount of people that are in the house?
Thank you very much. Okay. Again, this kind of question isn't related to what we're here for today, which is to have a change of a bylaw. But I guess the question was asked about the septic, and now it's come to our attention. I would pose that to Robert.
Yes, Mayor Sennis, what exactly would you like me to speak to?
The question was asked, is having the number of people that are there now, would the septic have to be looked at? Would it be able to handle it?
So based on the complaint that we received this past week, we will initiate some enforcement activity on the property to ascertain what the actual bedroom capacity is in the dwelling and what the sewage system that's servicing the building currently needs to be sized at. As for the proposed additional building,
Excuse me.
we have no current proposal information associated with that dwelling and how it'll be serviced. As part of the rezoning application, that would come at building permit time, and we'll evaluate that when we do receive those applications.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak against it? Can you please go to the microphone and give us your name and address?
Good afternoon. My name is Marzena Switalski and I live at 2025 Pinehurst Avenue for last 24 years. I'm here today with my friends and neighbors who can attend the public meeting at 1:30. Some people are working. First, I have a question to the Township Council. Why only a few people got the notice of this meeting and proposed amendment? I guess the less people aware of the application, less problems they will cause for Mrs. Martov business. Mrs. Martov bought a property in 1965 Pinehurst Avenue, quiet, dead-end street on the Chemung shore, a few years ago. And I was happy when the house was renovated. It took a long time, but eventually it was finished. But soon after, I learned that it is not a family home. It is not a family cottage. It is a luxury waterfront short-term rental cottage, 5,000 square feet, hot tub, 13 guests, 6 bedrooms, 7 beds, and 4.5 bathrooms. That was advertised on internet. Again, how and when Mrs. Gila Martov got license to open that and run this enterprise, I don't know, because Township of Selwyn omitted to inform permanent residents on that street.
Can I stop you for a minute?
Yes.
Because you've asked a question and I will get our planner to answer it.
I actually called and I asked, and I was told that there is a law which tells that the only immediate properties, owners of immediate properties have to
You
be
have the
informed.
answer.
Yes, I do. And I do
Okay.
not like this law, and I think it should be changed because whatever is happening on the street doesn't affect only the immediate neighbors. It affects all street, especially there is only 40-something houses and it's dead-end street.
Mhm.
So
And then you had another question about a license.
why, how,
So-
how
Okay,
and
so-
when it was obtained and why we didn't know about that?
Okay, so can I get an answer to that, please, from Robert?
Yes, through you, Mr. Sanders, we do not license any of those type of properties. We do have licensing for bed and breakfasts, although there's no current active licenses in the township, and we do license rooming and boarding houses on service properties that are typically servicing the Trent University area.
Thank you.
All right. So Mrs. Martov does not reside in this area. So I wonder how was she able to apply for such an enterprise, but that's a different story. In consequence, we have increased traffic, increased in noise disturbances, strangers walking our street, and decrease of our property's value. Because who wants to live on the street with 2? Yes, now we have 2 Airbnbs. So I strongly opposed proposed rezoning. It is reasonable to assume that the request to add a secondary dwelling with the septic bed and well is an expansion of current enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to speak to that or?
Yeah, so if I caught that right, it was just a concern regarding septics and wells at the end. So from a planning and development perspective, we only get into more extensive studies regarding servicing requirements when we're dealing with larger scale development, such as for 3 lots or more. With smaller scale development, such as proposed today, we leave it to our building department at building permit stage to review the septic system during the, obviously they need to apply for the a septic system for the new second unit as well. The well, the township does not have regulatory authority for wells. That's under the Ontario Water Resources Act. And it's specifically well drillers in the province of Ontario need to comply with the OWRA and ensuring that a new well meets water requirements in terms of volume and also for quality, right? For the user. So it would come down to the well driller to ensure that the well meets Ontario regulation requirements.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If you can go to the mic and give me your name and address.
Hello, I'm Peter Monick. I own 2055 Pinehurst. 10 years ago, I built a garage. And I was definitely informed by the township that no water or hydro allowed in that property. Is those bylaws changed today?
Through your worship, I'd have to look up the zoning specifically on the property that you're talking about to see what the specific zoning regulation is on that. If there is a restriction regarding the usage of a similar property, again, the process would be going through zoning amendment, similar to what's being.
And I was informed by the building inspector then, there's no water or hydro, which I complied. There's still no water and no hydro. It's a double car garage.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, so I'd have to take a look at what your property is, where your property is, what the zoning regulation is to confirm what exactly the restrictions are on your property. And if you wish to service it with water or hydro, if needed, depending on the zoning on the property, the process would be to get a zoning amendment.
Well, let me ask you a question. Has the bylaw changed from property to property?
It
That
can.
applied to 2055 Pinehurst 10 years ago. Does that not apply to the rest of the properties today?
So you're asking very general questions. So
Yeah.
so there was a number of lot addition consents done more recently through Roger Glover's property to the rear, the farm property. The lot addition parcels were zoned lakeshore residential, so they have they're considered part of the principal property. I believe the lot addition parcels that were done a decade or more ago had some further restrictions on them. Other than what's on the general lakeshore residential provisions. Off the top of my head, I don't recall what those were. I'd have to go look them up.
So he will have to look that up for you, sir.
The question I have is on the entrance to Pinehurst, the mist on those properties is outrageous. I
Excuse
think
me.
that I'd like to see the township of Selwyn to enforce the bylaws and regulate the mist that is on those properties.
Okay, I appreciate your coming to speak to us. And I understand that you're not happy with the way it looks going into Pinehurst. However, we're talking about this application and it doesn't really relate to it. So if you have no other questions that relate to this application, I would ask that you please sit down and let someone else speak.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? But you have to go to the mic and let me know your name and address, please.
My
We
name's
record
Robin.
all this.
Pardon?
We record all this.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. My name's Robin Nelson. I'm at 1909 Pinehurst Avenue. So I just have some questions. I'm not against or for this, but I do have questions about it to even determine whether I would be against or for it. Airbnb. I think Perry, you mentioned, or Robert, that you don't have Airbnb licenses, you have bed and breakfast licenses. If you have Airbnb licenses or places in the township, why don't you have Airbnb licenses in the township to monitor or?
Through you, Mayor Senes, before my tenure here at the township, there was a working group that was put together under, I believe, council's direction. And through that working group, an enforcement protocol was put together, and that is the route that the council had directed staff to deal with enforcement and the situation that has arisen around the short-term rentals.
And where is this enforcement protocol? Is it readily available?
It's on our website. And it is activated by residents when necessary. And I can tell you that we do not get a lot of complaints.
That's fine, but it could be that people don't realize there's a enforcement protocol with guidelines in it to know what they could complain about or not. So there's a lot of complaints that go on the street. But whether they do a formal process or
I
not,
hear that because I'm
should
hearing from
educate
you that
everybody
you
on the
have them,
street.
but now you know that we
Yeah.
have a complaint process. Please utilize it.
yes, and I think one of those rules are that there's a maximum of 90 days for an Airbnb to be rented out. Has anyone know this off the top of their head? Okay, well, if there's a 90 days, then who would monitor that? Is it actually complaint driven by the citizens that need to monitor how many days the Airbnb is rented and then make a complaint when it exceeds that threshold?
Robert?
Through you, Mayor Sennis, I believe the clerk would like to speak to that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I could just clarify that
Sure.
that 90 days is commonly used by municipalities that do license Airbnbs. So
we don't
it's not a
have that.
provincial legislation. It's something that is implemented when a municipality chooses to license the operation.
And so Selwyn Township chooses not to license Airbnbs, but there is an enforcement protocol that if I review it, it may or may not be in there.
That the 90 days is not part of the enforcement protocol.
And what does it take to get that changed? What's the process? Is there a process for people to request changes to that enforcement?
I think that the enforcing 90 days would be part of a licensing program. And as Robert just said, this council and the previous council have decided not to license Airbnbs. Instead, they're enforcing any violations of bylaws as a result of activity that takes place
Fair enough.
on a property, whether it's a short-term rental or any other property.
Fair enough. And so council actually services the constituents. And so what process would constituents use to have the licensing of Airbnbs be more formalized in Selwyn Township?
That's something that we would have to decide if we wanted to go down that road. And we aren't doing it today.
No, fair enough. Okay. I will continue to work on that one separately. Per mentioned that rentals, that the property is zoned for renting. Being like.
Just as yours would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but the wording that he used was that it would be rented just like a single family dwelling would rent it to a single family. But when you have multiple families that are renting at the same time, that's then I think goes beyond the tolerance for the zoning designation. Is that fair?
So I can respond to that. So many people will probably recognize that many years ago, what we call today single detached dwellings, I just simply use the term because that single family dwelling is what people are used to. We can't people zone. That's against the Constitution Act. So we can't differentiate between whether you're related, occupying a dwelling or not. So provided the residence is occupied as a single detached dwelling, and it meets, as Robert is saying, it has capacity for the number of people that are occupying that single detached dwelling as a single detached dwelling, then it's fine to rent it out. I'm sure you see all the time people renting their homes out.
So when
This
it's
is a
not
similar type of use.
being utilized as a single family dwelling.
I caution, I'll step in here. We really should refer to them as single detached dwellings. There's no such thing as single family dwellings anymore. We just.
Fair enough, but you also mentioned that when it's operating as a single family, and I won't get hung up in the words, it's not operating as a single family residence where it's being rented out for a couple of weeks a year. It's being operated as an Airbnb full time. The owner pops in now and again, but she certainly doesn't live there. She has multiple other properties. So it's not being operated as a single family home under the description that you said it is allowed to be rented.
Through your worship, I would disagree. It certainly is. The home is being occupied by one group. to be used as a residence. It is in the short term, that's permissible. It's not extended beyond the land use permissions for that property.
All right, well, I guess we don't have to agree, but keep going.
All right, yeah. Are
I have
there
one more
many more?
question.
Because
Mhm.
we're, I'm trying to determine.
Yeah, I have one more question.
Okay.
Okay, so this change has already been made to other zones, residential zone. So at some point in time, Bridge North, Lakefield, residential areas had this change amended to their zone. And my two-part question was, why wasn't Lakeshore Residential included in that change? And the second question is, even though we haven't had an impact increase or reassessment in many years, having this amendment to this zone, will it affect the impact rate that is applied to all of our properties? And one more, if this is done on this particular location, why wouldn't it just be done across all, across all of the zones, because it was potentially overlooked when it was done to, I'm very familiar with density and what's going on in Peterborough, and that there's some conflict going on with townships and whatnot as to what you want to happen or not happen on these properties. And I haven't gotten any clear answers when I've asked questions, but and I'm not finding the information easily. But I'm just wondering why, when you changed it for residential in Selwyn Township, did you not include this change across all Lakeshore residential properties? And does it affect
Okay,
impact?
so through your worship, I think I hear two questions. One, the tax component. This is a site-specific zoning amendment, so it would be up to impact to assess whether this zoning amendment has any, and the new structure on the property has any effect on the assessed value of the property. That's outside.
That
what I do.
property would definitely have an increase,
So I won't
but
touch the land value question any more than that. With regard to the zoning of what permitted uses in Lakeshore residential, like in my preamble, when I first spoke, there is set regulations, general regulations for Lakeshore residential. Anybody can come forth if they want to do something different in a particular zone that isn't permitted. They can apply for a zoning amendment. That's what's happening.
yes.
So when the zoning, I mean, I can put, I wasn't here in 2009 when our current bylaw was passed. But I would speculate that the waterfront properties in Lakeshore residential that are true waterfront properties, such as 1965 Pinehurst on the west side of Pinehurst Avenue, we have a 30 meter shoreline setback requirement. So they limited to try and keep consistent with that 30 meter setback and not putting more structures on a property that where you may have limited land between the water and the road. That we limited the second unit regulations to within the principal dwelling on the lot only. In this case, in the meantime, between this property, just a couple of years ago had this back lot added to it. Right, so now the resident is wanting to put a single detached dwelling with a second unit above it that would be much further away from the waterfront than the existing principal dwelling. So it is working to comply with our environmental regulations to protect the lake. So we're in this context where I am recommending approval of this, because again, the detached garage is much further away and complying with our 30 meter setback requirement. It's doing more than complying with it.
Mhm.
The garage itself is a permitted use. They can apply for a building permit tomorrow for the garage within the Lakeshore residential zone regulations.
Mhm. And in this paperwork package that I received from you, thank you. It refers to the fact that in the Lakeshore residential zoning, because the initial property is a house, the second unit would be a rental dwelling. But yet in reality, both properties are rental units. Both dwellings are rental units. So that seems to be contradictory as well, and I thank you for your time.
And so through your worship, no, that would not be contradictory because that would happen in other properties and other locations, even in Lakefield, where somebody rented out their principal dwelling and their second unit if they so chose to.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that is speaking in opposition? Give us your name again, please.
It's Marzena Switalski from 2029 Pinehurst Avenue.
Thank you.
My question is, what's going to happen in years ahead if you approve this application? We're going to have houses or some kind of dwellings on the other side of the small street, leaking their wells and leaking their waste from their homes to the lake through our houses. So what
That's
I
your
see,
question?
that's my question. It's really awful thinking that we're going to have houses across the street, and it's scary. Our street is very private, very quiet, and very comfortable living, but I don't see it when we allow people building homes or any dwellings with the septic tanks and water and wells there.
So the province, I'm sure you've heard that we have problems with housing. We don't have enough. And the province has allowed that there be secondary dwellings with properties now, secondary units. And so it complies with what the province is looking for. I appreciate your saying that it's not going to be used as housing, but I guess that is something that could be argued because at this point in time, I'm not sure what the use is going to be. We can ask the planner to get up and answer that question. She could answer it better than anyone else. But it could be that secondary units could go into a unit across the road and be rented out for people to live in. And that was what the intent was from the province, because they recognize that there aren't going to be all houses built on single lots.
Thank you.
And when it comes to wells and septic, they are checked. This isn't something that that we just give the okay. It is something that is ensured that it's able to accept, to utilize that property with the well and the septic. And maybe if I can get the planner to get up and speak to that question.
Well, I just hope that our opposition is going to be heard and we're going to have our street back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Laura Stone with One Community Planning. In regards to the septic, because the proposed dwelling is located on the opposite side of the road to the principal dwelling, septic systems can't cross a roadway. So a new septic system will need to be put in for this dwelling. It will be, a building permit will be required for it, and it will have to live up to the standards of the Ontario Building Code, and it will be inspected by the building department for the township. So in regards to that, I hope that there's some level of comfort that septic will be state-of-the-art, brand new, and reviewed. My client has insurance to rent out the principal dwelling for 1/3 of the year. So 3 months out of the year is, it's not a full-time rental. The intention for the rear portion, the accessory dwelling, is for personal use. She's got a number of family members who would be interested in living in that year round. So that is the intention. But you know, as we've heard and has been spoken about, what is happening today may change tomorrow. It may change 5 years from now. Someone may purchase this property and it would be reverted to a cottage in 5 years. So we are planning for what is before council today. I will relay the concerns to my client. And I would also like to just note that the township does have a very robust reporting process. I had a look at the website yesterday, and there's a number of ways that complaints can be filed for a number of issues, and it's all drop down, very easy to follow on the website. So I look forward to answering any other questions should council have them.
Okay, thank you very much. Have we done with anybody that's opposing now speaking? Because I will bring it to council. Is there anyone else? Can you please go to the microphone and give us your name and address?
Andrew Nash, 1959 Pinehurst. We've been there a long time. Roger Glover is part of he's the owner of the property that this was all severed from. Was he part of the planning process? He was on, according to the website that I saw, he was on the ad hoc planning committee. Was he part of this process?
Not to my knowledge.
Your worship, no, Roger, for this particular application, Roger had no involvement.
That's all I want to know.
Thank you very much. All right, if there's no other people who want to speak in opposition, I will bring it to council. Are there any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we have a recommendation before us. And I'm looking to see who will move that or second it. Move it by Councillor Koulis, seconded by, sorry? Yes, aren't they? Councillor Henry, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Black. Councillor Boyko,
Yes.
Councillor Koulis,
Yes.
Councillor Henry,
Yes.
Mayor Senes.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
All right, we will move on to question period. Is there any questions someone has? Yeah. You know the drill.
Robin Nelson, 1909 Pinehurst. I really would love to have a clear answer as to what is the process to get more clarification on Airbnb, a license, monitoring adherence. There is a lot of issues of what's been going on in the street with all of these
And yet we've had no
cars.
complaints.
Well, we're going to educate the street on what the complaint
Okay.
process is, right?
Okay, perhaps if you can give our clerk, Angela Chittick, a call, she can walk you through.
Yeah, because it's the Airbnb portion, I think, which is the bigger sore spot here versus the need for
I
housing.
understand that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we will move on to the municipal and staff reports. And Janice, we have our work plans. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. We need to go back to the strat plan.
Thank you very much. Strategic plan.
Yes,
We'll go back
That's
to
fine.
it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, just thanks to Anand for his presentation on the Recreation Services Plan. That was great. Certainly, it's been a lot of work getting to where we are, and as always, we've really appreciated working with Monteith Brown. So, of course, Monteith did help us through the facilitation and consultation process for both the RSP and the strategic plan. So, just as a reminder, we've already had one public open house. We've had community and user group roundtables and interviews. We've had advisory committee and board workshops. We've had a community feedback form. We've had a staff feedback form. And in addition to that, you'll all remember we had our day together with council and the management team in April, just to really have that good discussion around, okay, where's the municipal sector at now? Where is Selwyn at specifically? What are our challenges, our strengths, our opportunities? And just to review our vision, our purpose, our goals, our values, and looking to again, get that feedback in terms of developing what our initiatives are moving forward for the next 5 to 10 years. As Anand mentioned, I think there was general consensus about our current vision, purpose, values, and goals, that they're still very relevant. There were a few areas of discussion. So what we've tried to do is pull forward just a couple of little changes that really, I think, reflect the tone of the conversations, and just really trying to make sure that those statements reflect our role and our approach to the way we do our work. So the vision, there's a small change here. So it would be a proactive and sustainable community. Previously, it was progressive and sustainable. And I think there was just a feeling that word progressive maybe needed to be a little bit more progressive. So we turned it to proactive. And then the what used to be mission, and I have it wrong here in the report, I apologize for that. We did have conversation around that word mission, and did decide that we would change that to purpose, because again, we felt that was more appropriate. And what that used to be was leader in providing innovative and effective municipal services. And again, to reflect some of the discussion we had, we're recommending leader in advancing effective and efficient municipal services. Beyond that, the values and the goals really, I think, were found to still be very relevant. So we haven't recommended any change there at this point. So what we've done from there is we've gone back, we've taken all of the discussions there, we've looked at the feedback that we've received from the public. We considered where we are with the initiatives that we've had previously, and a few of them are carrying forward. And we've just brought forward this list. It's a fairly good long list of initiatives that we think would be helpful and would really reflect the themes that we've heard through all of our consultations to date, to try and to move us forward to meet all those goals that we've established for ourselves. So I'm not going to go through them all individually. I'm sure that council's had a good opportunity to go through them. And we'd be happy to try and answer any questions, or just to entertain any further discussion. Certainly this document would go forward as part of our public consultation that will be happening next Monday. And we would like, if there's any changes that council would like after discussion, if we could have a resolution to give us any direction for things you'd like to see changed, added, deleted, in preparation for it to go forward to the public for further consultation. And again, as Anand noted, there will be another opportunity for council, obviously, after we do our next round of public consultation, to speak to the content here.
Right. Do you want us to speak to the vision and the purpose and values now, or do you want to wait until we bring everything back? Do you want to take this first to the public?
I think what our goal really is now to make sure that this is reflecting what council wants, and council feels it's reflective of what we've heard. And then we would take this back and really just confirm it with the public. Okay. So if there were any concerns around what we've recommended, I would obviously like to hear about it. And if there's anything you'd like changed to go forward to the next round of public consultation.
Okay, so maybe we can look at the vision, purpose, and values and goals. Is everyone happy with the direction we've gone here and with the change of wording? I'm seeing some nods. Yeah, okay. We're going in the right direction. Okay. Good to hear. And then we've got these initiatives now. So I see a hand up, Councillor Boyko.
It says we're transitioning into the pilot stage of an ongoing municipal transportation service. I mean, regarding classifications. For service delivery. We are only, probably through the pilot, and we have one presentation from the consultant, and we're told we're going to have a second presentation from the consultant. And so I wonder if we're jumping the gun here, by saying we are going to transition when we don't have all of the information yet. Perhaps that could be reworded to say we'll investigate the advisability of transition.
Yeah, perhaps it could just be consider transitioning.
Consider transitioning. Is that what you're suggesting?
Investigate the advisability or consider
transitioning.
Transition.
Consider, I consider transitioning. Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder?
I guess I put that.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. Yes, yes, by resolution. Okay, all in favor of that change? Okay. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through Mayor Senes. Number 2, no, just kidding. Going to 39, actually. I'm going right to the bottom of the list because it's an exhaustive list, and I'm exhausted from reading all the reports this weekend and financials and everything else. But no, 39, I think everybody recognizes, and it's through the rec report as well, that volunteers are a key component to a lot of the operations, certainly in the parks and recs and gardens and trails and all those sorts of things. And most recently, we've had a couple of requests around repairs to gateway signage in the municipality. They typically are on municipally owned properties or right of ways. And, I think both the strategic plan and the rec plan talks about, just as 39 says, considering evolving volunteer participation's impact on the township, and so on. We do have a grant program, and I recognize that that's been in existence for a long time. And the process there is the number of applicants. I think it's $5,000 is divided by the number of applicants. So in the past, we've had 20 plus applicants, so it's a couple $100 each. It really doesn't impact a significant project, or it's not technically related to a specific project within the municipality. So if council prefers to keep that piece in place, so anybody who applies can get something from the municipality. I'd also like consideration in the budget to an additional $5,000 for special projects where volunteer groups, not-for-profits, like the Innismore Horticultural and Garden Club, can apply for a certain amount of funds to help repair the sign. In Innismore, we have the gateway signs in Lakefield that both need work as well. I just have some concerns that we're putting an unrealistic or unbalanced financial obligation on volunteers to raise money to fix signs that really they're part of economic development. They're part of showing our township off at different points of entry into the township. And I think it's something that we need to consider moving forward. And that would be by application, by project. And maybe it's like the CIP, which again, I don't know how much money is in there right now, but 300,000, I think. Maybe money from the CIP could be reduced this year and that 5,000 be brought across as a new opportunity for some of those not-for-profits to access some of the funds on a 50-50 basis, or however that's considered. So I'd like to have that considered in the budget for 2020.
Okay, but that really doesn't have to do with this 39.
It talks about supporting volunteers, and this is a way we can support volunteers.
Okay, I think though that what you're asking is for it's a budgetary thing, and maybe should have been spoken about when we get down a little further in financial. It really isn't. You're trying
I can speak about it then as well.
Yeah.
If you want, but
Any
I'm speaking
comment
to
from
support the
staff?
volunteers.
Yeah, so I think if that's something that we want reflected in the strat plan, it would have to be a specific initiative in the strat plan to consider such a program. So that really would be the only way to reflect it in the strategic plan, because we don't get specific direction here for
we can wait till
budgetary,
budget.
for specific budgetary items. Yeah.
Sure, and we can wait till that, if that's process.
Yeah, I think that's proper form. Are there any other initiatives that someone would like to speak to? Yes.
Sorry, if you take a look at number 9, could you, I think I understand this, but I want to make sure that I do. Could you explain what is meant by number 9?
Yeah, for sure. So I think we had a lot of conversation and we had quite a bit of conversation, if I remember correctly, at our meeting when we were all together. So I think what we're finding is utilizing technology to provide customer service is great on the customer service side. It's all easy, it's smooth, but on the back end, so for staff, so considering maybe cloud permit or cloud planning or virtual town hall, there's a lot of work in the background that staff have to do to make that work. The customer doesn't see it, but it really does increase the workload on the back end when we're trying to manage those new pieces of technology. And it's just really, I think when we're considering doing things like that, we just really always need to keep that in the back of our mind, because it's very simple to say, oh, it's software, it's going to be simple, it's going to save time. In reality, it oftentimes doesn't. It just creates a different type of work.
I understand. So if I could follow up through you, Mayor Sen, so when you say proper staff resourcing, are we talking possibly additional staff members that will be necessary to do this work? Is that what the word resourcing means?
Yes, and I think it's always having that consideration if you're implementing a new program, that what is that resource implication going to be on staff?
Gotcha. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation that the report of the CAO regarding the draft 2024 strategic plan be received for information. Council has reviewed it and provided the amendments addition. Are you saying what we're doing now is that, or okay? Yeah. Okay, so you're going to change the wording and say as amended. Okay, yeah. All right, someone will. Councillor Henry, Councillor Boyko, all in favor, that's carried, thank you. I thought we were gonna be here till 6 o'clock tonight. We're not done yet, I know. I know. Okay. Yeah. Oh, really? You have to get your thing looked at. Yeah, it shouldn't be, even when it's plugged in. All right, so we will now move on to the work plans, Janice.
Sure, thanks. So we have, oh yes, thanks, Anand. Enjoy the rest of your day by the lake. Yep. Yes, so we have our third quarter work plans that have been updated by all the department managers for you. So as always, we're here to answer any questions that you may have. Again, I think I noted it last time, but I'll note it again at this meeting. Certainly, we've had a lot of challenges with recruitments, with staffing. So it's been a challenge getting through things this year. So you'll see some things later than intended, maybe some things on hold, and we're working through things to get them to the finish line and get them to council. And again, just kudos and a thanks to all the department managers for kind of keeping the wheels on the bus with all the challenges that we've seen. Everybody's been doing a great job.
Okay, so we're going to go through them by department. Is there anything on the chief administrative officer? Seeing none, we will move on to building and planning. Questions? Councillor Cool's.
Thanks through you. I just had a question about the short-term rental complaints. I know we're probably going to see a shift in this after today's meeting, but Ennismore may not be in the lead anymore. I'm wondering if there's other types of complaints that might not be recorded on here that might be relevant to short-term rentals, and if so, like, is that something we should be educating the public about complaining about too? Like, I know in my history of dealing with the short-term rentals, it's been noise, open fire, dogs. I'm just wondering if there's other things that may not be on this list that we should be considering.
Through you, Mayor Senes. So we obviously respond to the complaints that are submitted to us, and that's what gets recorded on this list. So if the people aren't complaining about things other than what comes on these forums, we have had some complaints about drone utilization. However, we have no authority to regulate that, so there would be no action taken from the township's perspective. We would just close those files and record them as a complaint with no confirmed violations.
Can I ask a follow-up? And I lost it, I'm sorry.
Is there something that you've been getting complaints on that isn't
No,
reflected here?
I haven't been getting complaints, which is amazing.
Well, there you go.
So, but I do know, oh, sorry, I've got it. So there's one of the complaints that I get around my neighborhood is, they feel like they're making complaints, but they're not being linked to short-term rentals. So I'm just wondering on the application form, I can't remember, I haven't done the form in a while, but like, is there a box where they can situate if it is related to short-term rentals in their perception? And then it's reviewed by us to determine if it is or is not a short-term rental related issue.
Through you, Mayor Senes, it's currently through the complaint form. It's the individual that there's a description box to describe what type of complaint they're filing under, and typically it's mentioned as other, and then they'll identify it as an Airbnb complaint.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful for me to chat with constituents. Thanks.
Yes, Councillor Boyko.
I have two questions with respect to building and planning. I was going to ask this later, but I'm going to build on what Councillor Koulis was asking about. If someone, as we tell them to do, if someone has a complaint about an Airbnb and we tell them phone the police, if they phone the police, does that register and is recorded as a complaint?
So again, through you, Mayor Senes, when a complainant indicates a complaint to us, if they don't have a corresponding police report or they haven't put a complaint into the police beforehand, we have no verification or confirmation that a violation occurred. So what we recommend is that they contact the OPP and then they follow up with a complaint to us. And then we reach out to the OPP to get confirmation of that violation. And depending on what the officers notated in their visit, or if they don't attend, there isn't a report. So based on the information that they please provide to us on our request after we received a complaint, that's how we link up and can utilize the police reporting to verify a noise complaint. Outside of that, we have, I don't think any residents that have agreed to go on record if we need to utilize them, a sworn statement from them as our evidence to verify a noise complaint, that option hasn't been taken up by any of the complainants.
Okay. Thank you. Then through you, Mayor Senes, I think, is it fair to say then that because that's a multi-step process, that if I was living across from an Airbnb and it was loud at 2 a.m, I phoned the OPP, they showed up and the noise went down, I would consider that settled and not make another step. So therefore we would have no record of that having been a complaint. Is that a fair assessment?
Again, through you, Mayor Senes, yeah. So that would be us not receiving the complaint. So we would have no knowledge of that. When our residents do complain to us, we give them instruction and direction on how to effectively record complaints, both with outside agencies, for example, the police services, the Pubertal Humane Society, the fire department for burn violations, and then we ask them to submit to us an additional complaint and then we'll reach out to our outside agencies or third-party agencies and verify the complaints so that we can do effective enforcement.
I understand, but I think I'm right in saying that as a result of what I'm hearing, a number of complaints may be being made about Airbnbs that we don't know anything about. So I'll move on. My second question is with respect to, and I think Janice, you may have answered this through Mayor Senes, the building and planning department. There's a number of bylaws: parking, noise, fence, and pool bylaws. It says on hold. That's a result of staffing issues and not as a result of problems with respect to bringing those bylaws to fruition. Am I right?
Yes, there's been a lack of resourcing in the building.
Okay.
Planning department.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for building and planning? We'll move on to corporate and community services. Oh, sorry. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Senes. We keep talking about the amount of complaints and where they're coming from and whether they are or are not towards Airbnbs. Do we have a list of how many Airbnbs we have in the township? An approximation.
Again, through you, Mayor Senes, we have reporting that we put into CGIS, our GIS system, when it comes to complaints for short-term rentals. So we could draw a report out of that, and I could ascertain only a short list of properties that we've received complaints from.
Yes, so I can just add, we don't have a list of all the short-term rentals. We did have a number a few years ago that was produced, I can't remember by who, that tried to set out how many there were, but that hasn't been updated in a long time.
And it changes.
And it changes, for sure, it changes,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Can we move on to corporate and community service clerk's department? Any questions? For Angie? None? Financial services. That laid off the hook. Fire department. I don't, who's gonna answer for Gord?
I don't know who's going to answer, Brim.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Through you, Mayor Senes, thanks. Just looking at statistics, that's always a tough word. Medical calls, I think with the new protocol that's been put in place, you can see that they've been reduced from 238 in Q1 down to 205 Q2 and down to 190 in Q3. And there's almost 100 fewer calls per year to date. So I think that they've effectively incorporated the medical calls, and I think that's hopefully going to have a positive impact on the operations of the fire hall and loosen up some money for some other things there. Just a comment.
Okay, thank you. Human resources. Councillor Boyko.
Human resources goes back to fire that I was going to ask the chief were he here, but it's with respect to the recruitment process for fire. And is it an ongoing issue, and what is being done to address the fact that our firefighters are getting older, and as we all are, and our chief is getting older, and the fact that we have different stations that are really busy and others that are not. Is there a recruiting issue that is becoming acute, or is it an issue that we're handling? Is it hitting us at different areas of the township with respect to different stations? So maybe you could just give us just an overview of where we are with the recruitment retention process for the fire department.
For sure. So we typically do an annual recruitment for the fire department, which we are right in the middle of right now. So we receive applications from community members throughout the year. And then we bring in, we select from that group of applications to participate in interviews, depending on the number of volunteers that retire or just can't commit to the commitment, the time commitment, determines how many we bring on and how many require training and how many already have the credentials. So we're right in the middle of that process right now. So we typically do an annual recruitment.
Okay, and so what you're seeing right now at this point in the process, is this not an issue that we should be really concerned about? It's ongoing and it's being handled.
From my experience, it's been a pretty consistent. We have people leave every year. We bring new volunteers on every year. I don't see it as a.
There's no red flags.
I don't see a red flag right now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
It's always a concern, right? But nothing out of the ordinary.
All right. We'll move on to library services.
Sorry, I'm being
Mr. Boyko.
so unlike me being particularly mouthy. Am I right? I'm really pleased to see the circulation improving in the library. I think that's fantastic. I know we're still coming out of COVID, and the highest ever. I think that's fantastic. And the new patron cards. Makerspace, is any comments with respect to the Makerspace, with respect to the number of people that are using it? And what I'm thinking about is, are they the same people that are coming back all of the time, or is the net being thrown wider? Are more people using it? Are more businesses using it? So maybe you could just talk about the use of the Makerspace a little.
Yep, definitely through you. Yeah, I don't think it's the same people that are coming back on a weekly basis. We're definitely seeing some regular faces, but we've seen a lot of new faces as well. I think word is getting out. In terms of capacity, I think we're kind of at that at the moment, in terms of our staffing and our resources. Yeah, it's a very successful space. We don't have the capacity to really reach out as much to like community groups like schools, brownies, scouts, groups like that. It's something that we would hope to do in the future, but at this time, it's just not something that we have the capacity to take on. In terms of businesses, not a ton that we're seeing that are coming in to use it. It's more for personal use.
Excellent, thank you. If I could, with a follow-up, I'm in the library at least once a week, twice sometime in the Lakefield branch. And it's always busy. It's always being well used, which is terrific to see. Something that we did as a council at Roma is we made a presentation with respect to the library budgets that are being handled by the Ford government. I don't blame the Ford government, because this has been something that's been going on since the 1990s, where the allocation to the libraries has been frozen for years. Would this be something that council would consider a separate letter being written to our MPP and to the appropriate provincial minister to ask that something be done, ask once again that something be done about unleashing some funds for the library? When I read, for example, that we're all going to be getting $200, I thought, $3.2 billion could be so much better spent, for example, in unfreezing the library funding. Is this something that council would consider a separate letter to our MPP and to the appropriate minister?
We haven't received, I think, the funding yet from our presentation that we made in January. Have we, Lane?
Sorry, through you. No, so the Public Library Operating Grant, that application closes later this week. So it'll be released end of the year, early next. In terms of an update, I know that they did publicize one. It was more so around First Nation public libraries. So they did receive a large increase, but nothing in terms of, public libraries.
Right, so, but there is still the opportunity to receive an increase after our application goes in for.
Technically speaking, yes, through you. Yep.
Technically speaking, okay.
And our MPP had told us that it was going up, but show me the money. We haven't got it yet, so.
Okay, thank you.
And Sarah, I'm okay with the time change. All right, Parks and Rec. Any questions? See none. Public Works. Questions? Okay. Actually, I have one for you, Adam. The different projects that are in hand, like Strickland and Water Street. When is the final like finish, get rid of all the cones and equipment and all that jazz?
So you meant, so just Strickland Street specifically, or?
And Water Street, because it's still,
Yeah, so right now Strickland is a little behind, so we're looking at probably mid-November by the time we get curb and base asphalt down. And then it's really gonna be weather dependent. If we keep this mild weather, then we're gonna be able to get surface treated, final lift of asphalt down. If we do get a cold snap, then that might have to be put on hold, but we're really pushing to get that project done and wrapped up this year. Water Street, I haven't got an update. They were planning to pave next week. There has been a delay, so I'm not sure when that's been rescheduled to, but in the coming weeks here, like within a week or two, Water Street will be paved and completed.
okay. And Queen Street is a county project, is it? The what, you know, where the dip is?
No, so that's a result of a water main break we had back in the summertime. So we, as part of the Water Street project, we were able to engage Accurex to do the asphalt restoration.
Okay.
So when we finished the water main replacement, we brought the asphalt right up to grade just to get the road back in order. Part of the county road cut permit policy, they require us to do a lap joint to mill it down to make it a better transition. So that's been milled down, and now when we do the asphalt on Water Street, we'll be repaving that portion of Queen Street as well.
Do we have a date?
Be the same time frame they do Water Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Same time.
Yeah, it's the same crew that's gonna be doing it.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so I need someone to receive these reports. Deputy Mayor Black, Councillor Henry, all in favor, that's carried, thank you. And now we go to Lane.
You, Mayor Sennis, so this is the financial statement third quarter overview. So just some comments provided to council that kind of answer some questions that council may have when they look at the financials. Hopefully those and the comments previously made in the second quarter report will answer most of the questions that are there. But yeah, if there's any other questions, hopefully myself or my colleagues will be able to answer them.
Are there any questions, Deputy Mayor Black?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Mayor Sennis. Thanks for the report and thanks for the summary. I appreciate the amount of work that goes into those. I think your pre-comments cover off most of the concerns that we might have in the budget at this point. So I think that's a great report, and the summary numbers certainly. You know, again, still challenging to understand where we land just because of accounting practices that are more consistent and or more pertinent to the municipal accounting practices. It's really difficult to get that picture of, you know, income versus expenses, where do we land, that sort of thing. But certainly appreciate the summary report. It gave me a view of, okay, which departments do I want to spend time on and look at a little more detail. So I do appreciate that you've created this report. Mayor, is this where I should bring up my motion around the budget request?
Janice.
Yeah, I think if you want to chat about that, maybe you want to chat about that under other new business.
Under new business? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really not to do with this. Any other questions with regards to Lane's report? So I'm looking for someone to move the recommendation to receive it. Deputy Mayor Black, Councillor Boyko, all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. And we now move on to the tender results for Ennismore. Angie.
Yes, thank you.
Finally.
Finally, I agree. Thank you. Yeah, just want to thank as well. Certainly Adam and Lane are very involved with this project as well as Janice. So yeah, we're inching our way to hopefully getting some work done in Ennismore. You'll remember that we ended up retendering this year. We reduced the scope of work and reissued the tender. Tenders came in within about 6% of the construction cost estimates. So that was good news. And you'll see based on the spread of the submissions, they were all pretty close. So we felt pretty good about this tender package. So the recommendation is that Drain Brothers Excavating be awarded the contract in the amount of 715,000 and a bit. We would also suggest that the dry stack wall features be sole sourced to John Shaw Remington. He's the gentleman that has done all of the work in Ennismore in conjunction with the Ennismore Garden Club. We would then propose that this tender cost, as well as the dry stack wall feature, along with the contract administration costs, be brought forward to the 2025 capital budget. We would propose that the work would begin in the spring of 2025. Once council, if they approve this, we would get a better timeline from Drain Brothers on what the actual timeline for the work would take. But it'll be probably well into the summer.
Okay, and what work would be included in this, if I can ask? It does, I know we're talking about the drywall and things like that, but what would it entail?
Yep. So it would be the reconstruction at the intersection to include all the community improvement plan components. So new intersection improvements with drop curb that would meet accessibility standards. We would have decorative lighting at the intersection, landscaping features, trees, shrubs, native grasses, that kind of thing, benches. Then we would also construct the sidewalk from Ennis Road to Earl. On Ennis from Tara to Earl, sorry. Yeah, and the dry stack wall features.
I was looking for the S word.
Sidewalk. Yes, the sidewalk. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That was that's kind of what started this whole thing. So yeah, we need to make sure it's there.
Okay. Any comment? Questions? Deputy Mayor Black.
Through Mayor Sanis, thanks for the report. So 2 questions, one around the tender process. So if all applicants meet the standard of the RFP or tender, it comes down to strictly price at that point?
That's correct.
So in this case, all 3 of them qualified?
Correct.
Okay, Thank you. The other question I had was around timing. I know there's some significant events next summer with the Peter Robinson things that are going on, I believe, in July. Can we get this done before? So we're not in the middle of a construction zone during?
I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm not going to give you false hope on that one.
Should we wait till after? So again, we're not working through a construction zone? No?
No. Yeah.
No, but this
No.
tender, they have to give us a time frame for
They
it, right?
do. We did ask for a spring start though. Yeah. So they would have priced it based on probably projects that they have underway in 2025.
I'd hate to see it delay anymore.
But having a mess there is not gonna help with the celebration either.
We'll work around it. Yeah. There you go. All right, so we have the recommendation before us. I have someone to move it, Councillor Koulis and Councillor Boyko, all in favor. It's carried, thank you. And Alex Ernst, the Drinking Water Quality Management System Operational Plan. Yeah, push the button.
Good afternoon, Mayor Sanis and Council. So today I'm presenting this report, which would be similar to one you would have received end of May of this year. This is the second part of setting up and getting the township accredited as an operating authority as recognized by external bodies, which falls into line with Ontario regulations. Originally, the operational plan that you would have seen in May did not have 12 elements of the 21. Those elements are now included in the operational plan. So as a result of this report, we're looking for council to endorse our operational plan. The operational plan is what details the quality management system that will govern how we operate the drinking water system to ensure it is safe and abundant supply for all consumers.
So we have that plan has been provided to us. Everybody read the whole thing through. along with our other reading that we got. And I'm looking for someone to move the recommendation that's in front of us. Councillor Koulis, Councillor Boyko, all in favor. It's carried. Thank you. All right, we have consent items. Is there anything that anyone wants pulled? None. We are looking for someone to move 5 through 8. This includes petitions. Councillor Henry, and Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. And now under other new and unfinished business. Okay.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So I won't repeat what I was saying earlier, but again, I'd like to have staff look at including in the 2025 budget another addition to our current grant program that would allow for specific projects to be requested. Again, the terms or conditions of how that would work. I think it's time to take some of the financial burden off of our volunteer groups and let them do the work instead of spending time fundraising for some of these, again, particular projects that are on township property. I think that's overly burdensome for some of them. And I think if we can start with a small, even a $5,000 amount of funding for it, may not all get used each year like our CIP, but even considering moving that from CIP instead of the full contribution of, what is it, 75,000 for CIP, to make it 70,000 and that 5,000 moved over to create another opportunity.
So that you're making a motion?
A motion for staff to consider it to bring it forward within the budget.
Okay.
Could I ask a question for clarification? So in the budget, the last couple of years, we've seen an allocation, I think it's $5,000. Maybe that's the $5,000 you're talking about. And what we do is traditionally, every community group that applies, we divide by that number. And last year, everybody got like $169 or something. So rather than doing that, are you saying that the 5,000 that exists will still go and everybody gets their 169 or whatever it works out to be this year, and an additional $5,000? Or are you looking at a different process altogether for allocating the $5,000?
For you, respond. Thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's up to council. We had some discussion around the current grant system, and I just didn't feel that there was support to change that piece of it. If there is from council, I'm fine with that too. I think grants should be project-based more than just we're handing out money to everybody. And I know for some smaller groups, it's very important that even a couple $100 is important to those groups. But I'm saying in addition to that 5,000, if council doesn't want to make a change there, that we create a second 5,000, so $10,000 a total in grants available. Not that, again, the second 5,000 would be project-based at, 50-50 or something like that, and to maybe even a maximum $1,000 or something like that. But I think we have to help volunteer groups when it's a particular project. And as I said, ones that are on municipal properties, in most cases, there are properties. And so I think it would be an additional $5,000 if council doesn't want to change the previous grant system.
All right. Yes, Angie.
Sorry, I just want just a couple of comments. So in terms of the municipal grant program, it is project based. So in the process of completing an application, we do ask them, what are you using this money for? So I think the issue you may come up with is you're going to get those same 20 groups that are just going to apply for the same $5,000. So if your intention is that you want to try to provide more support to groups that we do provide support to that do work on township properties, we already have money in the base budget for that. So perhaps council wants to consider a change to that amount instead of having something that's application based. I will be very honest with you. I think that's going to be a very difficult process to manage because you're going to have an application, you're going to have some kind of vetting of it. It's going to require resources that quite frankly, we don't have right now. And you're distributing a small amount of money to potentially another 20 people. So I'm just giving you my honest opinion. I think that could not, if your goal is to try to support groups that are doing work on our township properties, we already know who those are. There are horticultural societies. So if council wishes to, we could perhaps bring something back for consideration in the 2025 budget that looks at those groups that we currently fund.
Don't we already give money to the Lakefield Horticultural, the Bridge North and Ennismore? They all get funding.
We give,
addition.
yeah, we do.
Buckhorn.
Correct. But not Lakefield specifically because we provide in-kind support for the watering, which was a carryover from the Village of Lakefield days.
But the value of that is in line with what Bridge North gets and Buckhorn and Ennismore.
Correct.
Yeah. So we're already doing that, Ron. Yeah.
Through Mary, yeah, no, and I get that. I mean, I think, you know, to some degree, we are supporting all of the organizations but I'm more concerned about things like where it's gateway signage to the municipality, and we've had damage to 3 major signs in the last 2 or 3 years. And we haven't, we've waited for volunteers to come forward and say, we want to fix these things. Can you help us? So if there's additional money that we can put in that budget, as you're saying, it might be an easier way. And those requests would come to council. If there's a request for $500 support for repairing a sign or wanting to create a new flower bed and they need, you know, $1,000 to create a new flower bed or a new sign that again supports economic development, supports tourism, all those things that make the municipality look positive. I think that's maybe a better way to start if that's what the clerk is saying. If we can look at increasing that budget, separating it within the budget for special projects. So.
But I'm saying we're already giving the money that isn't part of that stash that we have. It's built into the budget and it's substantial. I believe that in the value of the watering for Lakefields, what does that equate to? Lane, do you remember? It's around 5,000 or it's up, it's.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I was just going to look that up in our budget document. But I'll have that in a little bit.
Yeah, okay, so we'll get that information. So I'm saying the people that are beautifying, we are helping them, and it's too much more than the tune of $200 out of the 5,000.
Yeah, through Mayor. Yeah, no, and I'm not saying we don't do that, but when I look at what's happened in Buckhorn, where they've lost their volunteers, now they're planting. The municipality is planting all the plants. They're watering them anyways. They're doing all that work, and we've had to give them money.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is it's pay me now or pay me later with our volunteers. And I think having the township water the plants in downtown Lakefield, that's to the benefit of the township. It beautifies Lakefield. They do all the planting, all those. There's no benefit to the volunteers. They're doing the work for free. So I'm saying, you know, the watering of those plants, I think it's fantastic that we do it, and it is a cost to the municipality. But if the volunteers weren't making those baskets, we'd have to do it all at a significantly more cost. So I'm saying if there is a special project that a volunteer group has that works on municipal properties, I think we have to be open to considering sharing some of the costs for that.
Okay, well, I don't have a seconder right now, and I'm going to make a comment. I think we have no idea what we're going to be facing with this budget for 2025. I have been given a heads up that our OPP budget is going up substantially. I don't know what else we're going to be facing. And at this point in time, I'm not prepared to add something to the list when I don't even know what we're facing with what we usually have to work with. So, yes.
Through you, I actually have 3 comment questions. So my first question, because it started off of the CIP and taking money from there. Are we even able to use money from the CIP to do this? Like, are there restrictions that we're aware of or not aware of?
We would want to just have another look at that for sure. Yeah.
And my second, it's more of a concern, and it relates to the third one, is depending on how we go forward with this, we might be shifting the conditions of the grant. And so again, like Angie said, if there's more steps to this process, a lot of these volunteer organizations don't have the expertise for filling out grant applications. So we actually might deter them. I'm a bit worried about that. And that would then kind of parse out the longer, like the longevity groups who do have the capacity. So I worry that we're creating an imbalance there of opportunity. And then the third point is there's lots of grant opportunities outside the municipality, like TD Summer Fund. They do community-based projects. It's really easy to apply and it's like up to 30 grand. So there's lots of other things outside of our township that we can look at to consider telling them about.
So I don't have, did you want to say anything, John?
Well, I see merit in what Ron is saying. I take your warning. So what I would believe is that perhaps what we should do is wait until the budget process, but that with the confidence that staff hears that we would like this at least to be considered in staff's mind. Is there a place in our budget, given your restrictions, for the process that exists now? And this goes back to the question I asked, and a separate fund being established where we say it's $5,000, it's $10,000 for some special project, whatever that special project is. So a group could come forward and say, we want this. If there's room in the budget, I would love to see something like that as a separate thing. But I'm also saying, like, why don't we wait right now and see what kind of position we're in? So the merit of the idea, I love, but I heed your warning as well.
I just want to make one more follow-up comment here is the volunteer session that we did have in Bridge North. I didn't know about it till the day of. And the only reason I knew about it is because there was terrible marketing and it happened to come through the settlers group that I'm on. So I was like I'm connected to all the groups who ended up sharing it. And I got those, again, I don't know if it was the algorithm or not, but I didn't get those till like 3 days after it happened. So I think there needs to be a lot more proactive effort on promoting the calls for volunteers. And I think that's where a lot of the groundwork can come in. I applaud Amy for going out and doing that. It's a lot of undertaking, but maybe that's just a comment to Volunteer Peterborough on the marketing ahead of time, and maybe to our social media people about, I don't know how to promote it earlier, but yeah.
And actually I can echo that. I found out about it the day of as well. So I had no knowledge that it was even happening. Yes.
Mary, yeah, no, it was disappointing because number one, they chose to do it on a Friday afternoon, which wasn't the best choice of time. And yeah, it wasn't promoted well enough. They didn't buy time in social media to get it out there enough. But I think it's a good start moving forward on trying to get more volunteers for us. So yeah, not a great success, but it's a template moving forward. And I know they are planning on doing one at Lakefield or Ennismore in the next 2 years, moving it around as well. So hopefully there'll be more of a lead time and a little bit more opportunity to get social media out there to get people there. Yeah.
All right, so Ron had a motion, I'm not even quite sure what it is anymore. And it wasn't seconded because I think staff needs direction. We've been discussing it, we haven't.
I'll withdraw the motion, Mayor, at this point. Again, if the understanding is staff could look at ways to make those funds available and how that might work for special projects for these groups.
I'm not sure that the rest of council wants to go in that direction, Ron. That's, we've been discussing it, but I don't know that the rest of council wants to do that. So I don't want to ask staff to do something that the rest of council doesn't want to go in that direction.
Yes, so for sure, to try and develop a program, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take time and thought to develop the program. So if it's not a place that council feels they want to go, then I don't think we would invest that time. It is another discussion we could have at budget time. I think beyond the programs that we have, we do find ways to support these groups when they're when they're doing their special projects. And maybe there's something we can do in kind through Public Works or through recreation. Like we do, there's other ways that we can support and we do find creative ways to do that. But if you know, if the will of council was that we try and design a new program, then we would need direction from council to do that from my perspective.
Right. So either there's a motion or there's no, okay. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, is there any other new or unfinished business? Seeing none, we have bylaws, Madam Clerk.
Okay, 56 is a zoning bylaw amendment for 1636 line. Bylaw 57, zoning bylaw amendment for 1265 Pinehurst. 58, authorizing bylaw for a merger agreement. 59, another authorizing bylaw for a merger agreement. 60, authorizing bylaw to execute some agreements with Orca, various agreements, as well as 61 to authorize an agreement with Dream Brothers for the Annismore CIP.
Right, so I need someone to move those bylaws. Councillor Koulis, Councillor Henry, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And confirming bylaw. Councillor Koulis, yeah, Councillor Boyko, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And adjournment, Councillor Henry. And Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. Have a great evening.